Hey bestie, it's B. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. If you are new, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. As the title indicates, I'll be telling you guys some tips and tricks that have drastically helped me as a business owner, but I wanted to preface, a lot of these tips aren't necessarily specific to business owners. Some of them can be really helpful to anyone who has a job and is just looking for a more seamless approach to things and more buttoned up ways to keep track of your day-to-day things. So stay tuned for that because I think you'll find that this is very relatable across many jobs. Jumping right on into some of my big ticket items that I would like to recommend to you. First and foremost, before you do anything with your business, I highly recommend setting up QuickBooks. You need some kind of system that can track your transactions going in and going out. When I first started as a freelancer, self-employed entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, I was doing this in an Excel sheet. Granted, it was okay because I wasn't making a ton of money anyways, and I wasn't spending a whole lot to miss a transaction. But as I got busier, it was really difficult for me to keep up with what was coming in and out. And I thought that this would be the best way to do it because I really thought I had a grip on things. But no, when tax season comes around, you might forget some stuff. That's just human error. If anything, know that you need to have something reliable because if you live in America, you don't want the IRS coming for you. For real. Don't fuck around and find out. There are what you call bookkeepers, but I use QuickBooks, not even sponsored. Hey, I will take a sponsorship. Literally, I have an app on my phone. It's called QuickBooks, and there is a self-employed version of that, okay? Can't recommend it enough. It's like Tinder for business owners. You hook all your accounts up, and then you hook up your cards. All you do is sit down quarterly, monthly, or whatever it is for you. You go through these transactions, you swipe right if it's personal, you swipe left if it's business, or vice versa, and literally it categorizes it for you. Say, for example, I go on a coffee meeting with a client. I'm gonna swipe left and mark that as business. And then it's going to ask you another prompt. So it's gonna ask you for what part of your business do we need to categorize this? So for this, there's literally an option that says client meetings. Then I would choose that option and boom, it's now categorized under my business expenses and I know specifically what it was for. What's also cool is you can set rules for it. So you can do more of an automated experience so you don't have to go through this every single time and mark the same coffee shop as business. Say this coffee spot is your business spot. You always take clients here and that's the only thing you use it for. You can go into QuickBooks and create what's called a rule, and anytime you have that transaction, it's gonna automatically categorize it for you so you don't have to ever do it again. It makes your life so much easier. And then when tax season comes around, all I do is give access to my tax accountant and he takes care of it for me from there. I don't have to send him all these other pieces of papers, these other documents. I give him access. It shows everything for my business, what I made that year. It shows what was business expenses, and then it breaks down all my business expenses to show where within my business was I spending money. If I'm spending like 90% of my money on client meetings, that's a problem. So this is nice so you can kind of see where is your money going in your business. Is it going to the right places to help your business flourish? Or could you be saving money in areas? Could you do less meetings at the coffee shop? Could you do something else? Could you do more Zoom calls? Things like that so you can keep track and see if you're getting the most bang for your buck. With that said, it kind of brings me to my next point, which is going to be get professionals to help you. Before I even quit my job to become self-employed, I got a financial advisor. Why? Because I needed to create my exit strategy to leave that company, but also as my business grew, it was nice to have some insight on what I should and should not do. And like I mentioned in the beginning, my business has drastically changed every single year. So the things I was doing in even 2021, I'm not doing the same things now. My business is moving very quickly, so I have to have someone kind of guide me in the correct direction to say, hey, now would be a really good opportunity for you to open up this kind of account. Now would be a really good opportunity for you to invest in this. You know, having a professional that can help you see the bigger long-term picture with your money is epic. Also, they can help you figure out how to get the most benefit tax-wise as a business owner. Can't recommend that enough. Hire yourself a financial advisor and also find a good tax accountant. That is my next point too. The tax accountant needs to be someone that understands your industry. Not all tax accountants are the same. I found a tax accountant that is specifically familiar with a lot of industry people in terms of influencers, actors, talent. When I say that I had a business expense where I wrote off like a bunch of dresses for a red carpet, they're not looking at me like, did you? They understand that is legit a part of my job and I have to have these things to do my job. Worked with people that don't get influencers, so they're not willing to help me make the appropriate deductions because they don't understand my job. That's a huge issue. So you need to make sure that your tax accountant is on the same page as you and knows what you do for a living. If you need to provide proof, you can do that, but nobody's trying to like get over on anything. It's just, if it's literally for work, like you should be able to show for that. I think a reason that I've been able to grow my business and continue to make more money each year is because I'm also talking to other people in my industry about money. Now, social media is a very specific entity because it really is still new. If you think about 10 years ago, there wasn't influencers yet. You had just like celebrities. You didn't have these random people who were building a platform and able to sell you stuff. So talking to other people who are similar sizes, similar niches, it's so crucial not only to you and your success, but it's also just crucial to the industry in general. It's important because, for example, this is very common and still happening. So many people on TikTok blew up in 2020, right? You had literally every person. You could be a school teacher one day, a TikTok star the next. Literally, we saw things like this happen, right? Imagine blowing up overnight and then not knowing you've got 1 million followers. You can charge however much money, right? So what was happening in 2020 was a lot of brands were getting over on these new creators, especially the minors, because predatory. But it's true. These children, 14 years old or whatever, have millions of followers and have no idea how to manage a business, because why would they? They should be outside eating dirt. But they're here with an entire audience and now they can monetize it. And it's like, where do you even start with that? You have teenagers with huge platforms charging like $200. And then you have someone who has maybe 100,000 on Instagram charging like 10,000. It's not adding up because you guys aren't talking, because there's not enough information being spread and these brands know we haven't talked enough to each other yet, so they can continue to get over on us. A teenager with 1 million followers being offered $200 is gonna think that's gold. If I was being offered $200 as a teenager, I would have been like, the McDonald's money I'm about to have, the Starbucks I'm about to roll up into school with. I would have thought that was it. But also, when I was 14, I didn't have bills. I couldn't conceptualize expenses. So I wouldn't understand that $200 comes real fast and it goes real fast. As we've been able to have more conversations amongst each other in our industry, we're able to say, oh, you made that much? Oh, well, let me up my price. Period. But that's not just for social media, that's for any industry. No matter where you are, talk to other business owners in your field. It's not a sense of competition, it is accountability for you, for the clients you work with or the brands you work with, whatever it is, so everybody can be on the same page and so you can know what the standard is to be pitching yourself at and to be pitching other people at, and as a client, what you should be paying people so you know that they're not ripping you off, right? But if we don't talk, we don't learn. And I will say, I think women have a huge issue with this conversation more than men do, because men will throw around numbers all day. But in this industry specifically with influencers, I'm so happy to see women really starting to talk more to each other and say, hey, how much did you make working with this brand? How much did you make working with this brand? If we don't talk, we don't learn. Ask and be willing to also offer that information to other people, because it's going to help everybody win and everybody grow. I promise. This one is super important, but whenever you start having your own business, it is crucial to have a paper trail of everything. You need to be setting contracts if you're bringing people on with you. It can't just be word of mouth. Even if it's a temporary project, you need to be setting everything contractually or have some kind of paper trail via email or something. There have been instances where I didn't have enough of a paper trail and these things bit me in the ass, okay? Things I would never do now. I would never do a campaign without having the contract set. It is so important to create a paper trail and to have documentation of what was said, what are the deliverables, what are the services being offered. Everything needs to be spelled out, and it's okay to over communicate those things. And I think you should, because you might think someone would know something is common sense, and it is not common sense to them. You need to explain things thoroughly. And I am learning this every single day, especially with my recent experience with firing someone who was working on my podcast. I thought that I was pretty clear, but I realized looking back now, even our contract was not specific enough. What I would have done differently is I would have marked every date in the contract that needed to be met. And if it wasn't met, I would have had some type of verbiage stating that the partnership would be terminated and the money would be refunded. That's what I would have done differently, but I didn't. So I am taking the L, but please don't be me. That's what this video is for, because there's just things you don't think of until you're in the situation, and you don't want to have to find out that way. So that's why I'm excited to do this video, because I'm hoping it could save other people some time, heartache, tears, and dollars. When stuff like this happens, remember what I said, nobody's gonna save you. Sometimes you have to take the L and you are just out that money. And depending on if you're a small business owner a lot, that can really hurt your business or that project you're working on. So over communicate, be specific on deadlines. Don't just say, we can have it all done in September. That's what I did with my podcast. And now I'm literally firing someone looking for someone else. I wasn't specific. I didn't have a date. And I also didn't have a project timeline. And that's my fault, because up until this point, I had just trusted people too much. Take it from me. Have everything in writing, create a paper trail, and over communicate. I touched on it a little bit with being your own advocate and setting boundaries, but I really want to reiterate with you guys that it is so important to set boundaries as a business owner. Kind of going a different direction this time with it, but when I first started doing social media, I was desperate to just get experience. I was more fashion-based when I started, so I really needed clothes. At the time, I didn't have them, so I was doing a lot of free work with people in exchange for clothes, just so I could create content, because I didn't have money. As I grew, as my platform grew, I realized I could not continue to take on free work. It was draining me. I was exhausted. The worst part was I was starting to resent my job when it used to be fun. It was important for me to pull back, and I think when you start to feel that burnt out feeling, that's when you need to evaluate with yourself if you're charging enough. Burnout can be a huge indicator that you're doing too much work for too little pay, okay? When I started to get hit up by a lot of people, I'm like, well, clearly I'm worth their time, so why don't they pay me? This brings me to the whole setting boundaries thing. You have to realize that you have worth, and the first person that needs to see it is you. You know how much time, energy, and dedication goes into your work, and so if you are gonna let people get it for free, that's on you. You have to be willing to set the boundaries, stand up for yourself, and literally people will get mad at you when you're like, hey, I don't do this for free. I charge X amount of dollars. People have gone off on me, and God bless them, because you ain't gonna tell me what my worth is when I know how much time it takes, how much energy it takes, and that I am literally drained, okay? Protect yourself by setting those boundaries, setting your rate, and knowing your worth. Knowing your worth can be really hard, because I know sometimes we just wanna build our portfolio and get some, credibility in the industry that we're in, and that's fine, but you cannot do that forever. You can only do that for so long until it's time to ask for the monies. When you do that, you create space for people who value you and respect you. But if you're saying yes to every free job that comes your way, you're not even making room for people who want to pay you. Go back to my abundance mindset video. If like attracts like, you need to act like you're worth being paid for. But if you don't believe it and you don't act like it, it's not gonna happen for you. When I was saying yes to every small job that was free because I was like, I gotta build credibility. I was burnt out and exhausted, but also I was literally energetically blocking off people who wanted to pay me. And sure, for a minute, it's scary because you're like, I don't think anyone's gonna pay me. Am I asking for too much money? These are normal thoughts, okay? But you let them tell you if it's too much money. And if it is, you say, that's okay, thank you so much. Please let me know if in the future we can work together. Leave the door open. They might get budget down the road. But here's the thing, also, people remember what you say. So if you lowball yourself and you put a price that's way, way too low, they're gonna remember that about you. And that's what I had to do with brands even, because all these brands talk to each other. So if I tell one brand, oh yeah, I'll take half that rate this time, these other brands talk to each other and they won't take me seriously when I actually charge my rate. So sometimes it's worth me saying, nope, that's okay, I'm gonna pass this time, but I appreciate the offer. Let me know if your budget expands in the future. Okay, that's one of my go-to lines if I'm managing myself. I'm not right now, but if I was managing myself, that's how I would say it. It's super polite, it's respectful, but it's also a hard boundary that says, hey, this is what I'm worth. I can't go any lower than that. You know, if it doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. We can reconnect later if things change. So this one's kind of an interesting tip that I think is important, but maybe not to some of you. I would not hire someone unless I knew how to do the job myself. And I don't mean every little detail, but for example, when I hire video editors, I also need to know how to do it myself, because in the past, you know, things come up. An editor gets sick, has a family emergency. What would that do to my channel, right? That would put us off schedule. So I would never put myself in a situation where I am completely dependent on someone else to do the job. Most of the things I've hired people for, I can kind of do. Even if I'm not amazing at it, I can do enough to kind of fill the space if I had to. I just think this is super important because you never know what happens, right? Life happens, things happen, emergencies might happen, and you just don't want to be left in a pickle, right? Because what are you gonna do? Sometimes the show must go on, the business must go on. If you owe somebody something, you can't just all of a sudden stop because one of your employees or someone you've hired can't fulfill whatever it is. So it's just good to know at least the basics of what their job is in case you ever have to step in. If not that, at the very least, have other people who you could contact in the event that you would need, you know, another video editor or something. Have options, okay? You don't want to ever be boxed in to where you can't get something complete for XYZ reason, okay? If you are starting a business, it is so important to have access to an attorney. One, if you're getting an LLC or an S Corp, you're definitely gonna need some legal advice there, have someone set it up for you, but have access to an attorney. You never know what's gonna happen. With my current situation, with the person I just fired, I have attorneys that I was able to contact to see like what I could do in the worst case scenario or best case scenario. And it was just nice to be able to have these options and know what I could do in the event that I have to take it there. You know, legal action is not always necessary, but even if you have like a smaller question where you don't need like really an attorney to represent you, but if you're like, hey, I just have a quick question for you, a lot of the times they're super available and willing to help just so you can get kind of some clarification on what to do in certain situations. And my other point, going back to my current situation, I just want to remind you, it is okay to fire people. Sometimes it just might not be working out. It doesn't even have to be a whole thing, an ordeal. It might not just be a good fit. And sometimes you don't figure these things out until you're in the middle of the project. Like I said, be an advocate for yourself and know when something isn't working out. But at the same time, be respectful, be honest, and be stern. Don't let people walk over you. Communicate to them. And if your needs aren't being met, then you know what to do from there. It's not easy, but it's a part of being a boss ass bitch, okay? And sometimes we just have to do these really uncomfortable things, unfortunately. My last point, give yourself grace, okay? You are gonna have some major wins in your journey as an entrepreneur, self-employed, or your career in general. You're also gonna have some really shitty days, and both are totally fine. But like I said in the beginning of this video, both are so necessary and essential for your journey because both are gonna make you so much better, so much stronger, so much smarter. Everything is going to make you a better person at the end of the day if you allow it to. If you are gonna play the victim in these situations, bestie, I got news for you. That's not gonna help anything. When things don't go your way, take a deep breath. Maybe sometimes the day might be canceled. That's okay, but always come back to it and know that you are perfectly capable. You're just having a bad day. The ebbs and flows are a part of the journey, and that's what makes it beautiful. And you will look back and understand why things had to happen the way they did, because you'll see your growth over time. When you look back, you're gonna be like, yeah, I needed that to happen so that I can be where I am today. Okay, be grateful for everything that happens because it's so important for your journey. I hope these tips help you guys out a bit. Like I said, I don't like to look at things that don't go my way as complete failures. I just like to see if I can take a lesson from it, move on, and understand that tomorrow's a new day. Okay, that's all you can do as a business owner. You can't expect perfection, but you can strive for progress, and I think that's the most important thing. Let me know in the comments if you have any tips for people who are business owners, entrepreneurs, self-employed, or just anyone in their career right now that's trying to figure it out. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week.